The Department of Justice releasing its remaining documents from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the records will be posted throughout the day, including more than 2,000 videos, more than 180,000 images, some of the material so explicit you have to verify being an adult before you can actually access it.
Many of Epstein's survivors have been publicly pushing for years to have these documents come out, but it took a law passed with near unanimous support in Congress to finally bring these documents to light.
The victims of Mr. Epstein have gone through unspeakable pain, and there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months.
This story has been building for years. And what finally came out is more disturbing than most people expected, not just because of what the documents say, but because of how they were handled. The DOJ released the Epstein files, but what they withheld, what they accidentally exposed, and who appears to have been quietly protected in the process, that is what this is really about. So the DOJ did not release these files because they wanted to. They released them because Congress made them. The Epstein Files Transparency Act passed the House 427-1 and the Senate unanimously. That is as close to a unanimous demand as elected government produces. And even then, the DOJ missed the legally required deadline by weeks. Now watch what the CNN reporter reveals about what is actually inside those files, specifically what involves the current president.
A lot of speculation about President Trump being named in these files, and we're learning now the FBI actually compiled a list of allegations related to the president back in August. What are you learning?
Right. So this was in 2025 that the FBI compiled a list of all of these sexual assault allegations that involved the president of the United States, that some of them stretch back years, decades, that were associated with this case. And we don't know what of anything is actually credible here. As a matter of fact, we believe that a lot of these could not be verified. Some of them were second and third hand accounts that people were relating things, and that's the way the FBI works, right? Some of this is in 302s, what they call 302s, which are essentially witness statements, and anyone can make any allegations. The FBI takes it down, and then it takes time and effort to try to verify whether any of that stands. And so that appears to what have been has happened here. And what's notable here is that there's some of them that have very salacious accusations about the president. And again, a lot of them are unverified at all by the FBI.
So the FBI compiled a list of sexual assault allegations connected to Trump. The reporter is careful. He says many are unverified, some are secondhand accounts, and that is standard FBI intake procedure. Anyone can submit a tip, and the FBI logs it. What matters here is not the allegations themselves. What matters is what happened next. The Wall Street Journal and New York Times reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi informed Trump in May 2025 that his name appeared in the files and that officials advised against public disclosure. Trump then called the files fake and filed a defamation lawsuit against the Journal. According to Politico, after that briefing, Trump appeared to seek to narrow what the government would publicly release. And notice what the reporter just said. Some documents were removed from the DOJ website after being posted. At least 16 files disappeared from the site after publication, including a photo of Trump with Ghislaine Maxwell. They were restored only after public backlash. Flight logs in the files show Trump flew on Epstein's private jet at least 8 times between 1993 and 1996. Maxwell was on board for at least 4 of those flights. On 1993 flight, the only 2 passengers listed were Trump and Epstein. None of this is a criminal charge, but it is documented. And it raises a serious question about who exactly was being protected during a process that took this long and still came out incomplete. Now, listen to the attorney who represents the survivors, because this is where it gets worse.
Case. We're now hearing from some Epstein survivors, though, who say their names appear unredacted throughout the documents, despite assurances directly from DOJ that no personally identifiable information about victims would be released. Joining us now, an attorney who represents 11 of Epstein's accusers, Eric Fudali. Eric, thank you so much for being with us. The documents that were released today include some 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images as well. Is that, to your knowledge, everything DOJ has in its possession?
Absolutely not. No, it's not everything. And even what has been produced still has redactions. There are some very alarming statements from the Department of Justice today discussing what they've withheld and what they've redacted. And most alarming was they cited attorney-client privilege and ongoing investigations. The problem with that is there's no oversight. We just have to trust that everything they're withholding is, in fact, attorney-client privilege. And attorney-client privilege is very nuanced and very difficult, especially when you're dealing with prosecutors who technically don't really have clients other than the government. So, again, it's very convoluted. Also, ongoing investigations. You could say anything's an ongoing investigation and then withhold. That's what's so frustrating.
He said it plainly. It is a cover-up and incompetence at the same time. And that combination is actually more dangerous than either one alone, because when you cannot tell where the mistake ends and the intention begins, accountability becomes almost impossible to assign. Attorneys confirmed the DOJ failed to redact the identities of at least 31 people who were victimized as children, people who came forward to federal investigators under the promise of confidentiality. Virginia Giuffre's brother said the DOJ was redacting the names of perpetrators and unredacting the names of victims, the complete opposite of what the law required. One survivor began receiving unsolicited phone calls after her name was exposed and remained publicly identified in the documents days after the error was flagged. And the attorney's final point is the one that ties everything together. The DOJ did not need a law to release these files. They could have released them at any point. Something was stopping them. It was not Congress they voted 427-1 to release. It was not the public they demanded it for years. The logical conclusion, as the attorney put it, is that someone inside this administration did not want these files out. The survivors waited decades for accountability. What they received instead was their own names exposed in a document dump while the names of powerful men remained carefully blacked out. That is not transparency. That is the management of what people are allowed to know. Leave a comment with what you think and subscribe for more breakdowns like this.